your soul, I'll be there. Never leaving you in the darkness, even when you're out of focus. I will be the light in your life, you'll see it clear. I'll be your inspiration, 'cause I know that you do just what you're told. I'll be your heart and temptation, 'cause I know that you're making it on your
This is the OMFL,
You can't touch this.
and you're in the mix with Kinda Real Name. Here's another OMFL production.
All right, good evening and welcome to an OMFL All 22 OMFL Experts episode. It has been 2 whole seasons since we've been able to do one of these. It's hard to imagine that it's been that long, but finally I was able to grab somebody by the throat and drag them in here to do one of these with me. So let me waste no more time and welcome in my guest for this evening, Mr. Rob of the Cardinals. How you doing tonight, bud?
Doing all right, Nate. What about you?
I'm good. Merry Christmas Eve.
Merry Christmas Eve.
It's right around the corner. It's hard to believe that 2019 is already coming to a close. But I finally got you in here to come do one of these with me, and we're going to talk about team building tonight. So Rob is going to share his insights on how he views building a team, building a roster whenever you've been handed, I should say, a really terrible situation. Now, Madden 19, yeah, I got it right. Rob was the Patriots and was one of the top teams in the AFC, always pushing, always in the playoffs and always pushing for the OMFL Bowl. And then in Madden 20, he swapped over to the Cardinals and was handed a little bit of a rebuild. And so I think he just shares some pretty insightful insights on how you should think about rebuilding your team, how you should go about rebuilding your team, and the things that you could look at from a different perspective. So let's just jump right into it. Rob, when you took over the Cardinals in Madden 20, what the hell did you think?
I'm not going to lie. Initially, I thought the game was going to play a lot more like Madden 19 would, and that the lower overalls didn't really make that big of a difference. And I knew that I'd struggle with a bad roster, but I didn't think I'd struggle to the tune of 1-15 like I did in Season 1. But as we all know, Madden 20 plays differently, so I don't know if I would have made the same decision that I did coming over to the Cardinals, but here we are.
If Madden 20 played more like Madden 19, what was it about the Cardinals that was so intriguing to you?
Just Kyler. I went to OU, so I kind of got a man crush on Kyler and Baker and all the OU guys that are in the league now. So, and I've always kind of leaned more towards taking teams that are more of a challenge to put together and make your own, rather than a team that's, you know, going to be a competitor like day one out of the box. And that's just my style. I don't hold it against anyone. Obviously, if you want to, if that's just not your thing because it's a giant pain in the butt, especially in Madden 20. But that was basically my thought process.
Well, what was it about Madden 20 that made this a much more difficult process?
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to superstars and just how big of an impact they make on the game. It's, I mean, we've all played games where it just seems like superstars just take over. Like, Joey Bosa just gets 6 sacks because Joey Bosa. Or, you know, like Tom Brady just doing his thing. Melvin Gordon spin cycling people into oblivion. And the Cardinals didn't really have any of that, so that's been part of it. And another part of it is something that I'm planning to get into, but I can go ahead and get into it now. The fact that training XP has been lowered as much as it has, as opposed to how it was in Madden 19, kind of changed my game plan. It's you can't just stash away guys anymore, and that's something I learned the hard way. Like if you want a young guy to, you know, get in there and actually make a difference in the long run, you got to play him. Like there's no more stashing a guy second, third in the depth chart. Just train him every week, and by the end of the season, maybe he's usable. That's not the case anymore. And that was always kind of like part of my strategy, like keep the guys on the roster, and you know, maybe if you're training them every week, you can make something of them. But like I said, you got to play those guys now.
All right, so where'd you start with this roster? I mean, you took over a roster that needed a lot of help, but had some pretty key pieces, of course, Kyler, and you've built a pretty tremendous team here. So how did we get there? Where'd you start?
My import, like we were talking about before the show, my middle linebacker, Kevin Armstrong, he's kind of been the linchpin of everything on my defense. My defense, really, there's not a whole lot of new faces outside of some guys who took over for pretty much irrelevant players. Chandler Jones is still there, but Hassan Reddick I used my fantasy football first place award on to get him to Star Dev, and then after season 1 he got Superstar. Then last year he got X Factor, so that was something I didn't plan on happening. That's just kind of fell into my lap, and I'm really thankful it did because I didn't really have a plan for my LB2. But Buda Baker is another guy that's been on my roster since day one. He also got Superstar after season 1, I think just because I was losing so much since I was getting so many tackles that I think that was actually the reason why. But hey, I'll take it. Made something out of a pretty much terrible season otherwise. And I've kind of found a way to, you know, mix a lot of guys in that maybe weren't otherwise going to make a difference, like weren't going to be there long term. Like Byron Murphy, I wasn't sure about just because he had youth and he was Star Dev, but he was 88 speed and he was still really raw when I took him over. So I kind of went into it with a plan. Like I was going to focus train him all season 1, see where he was there, then make a decision on him. And he made enough progress that I decided to keep him. That's kind of, I guess, emblematic of my strategy overall. I'll give a guy, mostly young guys, like 1 season, see how they turn out. If I like them, keep them in the picture. If not, either extend, play it in the next year, or cut loose and replace them. And it was something I could do a lot with this team because I didn't really have a whole lot of veterans that I really needed to keep. And it's kind of forced me to be patient. Like I said earlier, this game plays just so much differently than Madden 19 did. So I was I was being patient with them, but it was also a lot of me learning as we go, seeing how my team plays, what they're good at, what they're not, and I figured out a lot of what they aren't good at season 1. So with that in mind, kind of went into the first draft and decided that my secondary was going to be the first big area that I focus on. So I had 2 first-round picks because I traded down with Massimo. I had number 9 overall, number 30 overall, and I got a cornerback and a free safety. I trained my secondary all last year, Wilkerson and Raleek Allen. And I stuck with those. Allen was initially normal dev, but it was another byproduct of playing a lot of football when I was losing. He got a lot of tackles, so he ended up getting a dev bump at the end of the year. But
yeah,
that's kind of plays into another topic I was going to have. It's just my draft strategy so far this year.
Yeah,
it's really just been I'll attack one position group and pretty much try to overhaul it in one draft. Like that's what I did. Season 1, my cornerback and free safety. Season 2, I attacked my O-line. I didn't really hit any home runs there, but it was something I needed to do regardless. So
that was this past draft that you did that?
Yes. I drafted my new starting left guard, center, and my first backup.
Center's really good.
Yeah, he got normal dev, but he's still my best O lineman by far. I think even better than Bulaga because he's more rounded. But yeah, so that's kind of how I've played this Madden. I don't know if that's something I'm going to continue, but it's how the first 2 drafts played out, and I like how it's gone so far. So I'm happy with it. But
now you've got one of the youngest teams in the whole OMFL. I was showing that while you were talking. I think your oldest player is 32 years old. You've got only 4 players in their 30s, and so you've not only got like a.
Yeah, I don't play most of them either. So it's kind of, but a lot of my guys are holdovers from seasons 1 and 2. It was just kind of just season 1. I saw where the season was going, and I decided, hey, is it worth playing these low 70 overall players as opposed to plugging in some high 60s that are 21, 22, 23 years old? And a lot of those guys that I plugged in over the veterans who were maybe a little better at that time, a lot of those guys turned out they're still on my roster today. My LOLB, Frank Ginda, he was a 65 overall, I think, when I plugged him in. Now he's 71. Just really, that's my strategy has been committing to something. It might suck whenever that rookie or the second year guy who's a little worse overall than like in Ginda's instance, it was Jordan Hicks, who was pretty significantly better. But if you think about it, that if you're playing on a 1-win team halfway through the year, what's the point in rolling out a guy that he's not going to be there 1-2 years down the road? So it was really just committing to doing that, and it sucked at first because there were plays being made or plays not being made that would have otherwise been made.
Right.
But it's turned out well for me in the long run, so I'm happy I did it. It's like I said, it sucked, but.
Can you talk a little bit about that? When do you decide I need to start this guy because even though he's older, he's just that much of a good player, or no, long term, I need to start this other guy because he's going to be there for a long time. He's going to be able to help me build my roster. So, what's the tipping point as people are taking over young, low overall teams that need to be built? How should they look through their roster to decide who they're playing, who they're not?
Yeah, so there's not any one threshold per se. I'd say for each team it's different because it depends on what your incumbent is and where your backups are. Like for me, if you look at my O line, go to left guard. I kind of made the decision earlier this year. I have a 70 overall 21-year-old. That's my second or third round pick. And I have 73 overall 29-year-old, 74 overall 27-year-old. But like at that point, is a 72, 73, 74 overall really going to make that much of a substantive difference over not playing the 21-year-old? So I've been starting the left guard. He's held up pretty well. But it's kind of like that where you just decide, hey, these guys aren't going to be on my team in 2 years. We're not going to be competing this year. Why not plug him in? Make sure he gets get him his snaps, get him his, put him first on the depth chart so he gets the most XP for training. Get him his in-game bonuses every once in a while. Get your challenges, and that's going to be the best way to make them something in the long term. And it's easy for me to make that decision if you look like when they're both low 70s, high 60s overall. Just because is there really a play that a 72 overall is going to make that a 70 isn't going to make?
Yeah, that's fair.
So for me, it kind of comes down to that. It's just looking at your depth chart, taking a step back, looking at the age, and thinking about it objectively. Like, what's going to be the impact here?
All right, so give some guys tips. Give me a couple of tips. As you may have one, you may have five. It's totally up to you. I'm taking over a low overall team like your Cardinals were to begin with. What are some of the things I need to be thinking about as I project kind of what my roster will look like over the next 2 or 3 seasons?
Yeah, so it kind of plays into what I said earlier. Just take a step back and think, look at it big picture. Be realistic. Know where you are. Know where your team is. And you might have to make some tough decisions, but it's going to be beneficial for you in the long run if you do. So it's not only that, but it's also making a plan and committing to it. Don't flimsy out just because maybe your rookie doesn't make a play that you think the other guy can make. Just commit to it. Be realistic and know that this is for the best in the long run. Like I said, there might be a couple plays where it sucks, but in the long run, what's most beneficial for your team may not be what's most beneficial for your team right now. So with that in mind, it's just, like I said, you got to play the young guys. That 400, 500, 600 XP from training is not going to, they're not going to go anywhere with that. They've got to get playing time. They got to get snaps. And they've got to hit their goals.
I got one more question before we kind of put a bow on this thing. You're not only the guy that helped me create the newest calculator that we have that's superb. I love kind of where we've went with it. But as a guy who not only, built that calculator and understands how that calculator works, but as a guy that took over a low-rated team, what is your perspective when it comes to draft picks, whether you deal into more draft picks, whether you deal out of the draft, keep what you got? What is kind of your view on betting on draft picks and using draft picks?
Draft picks aren't... That's another change that we've seen from Madden 19 to Madden 20. It's they aren't a sure thing anymore. There's no such thing as a guaranteed home run. There's certain positions that are more predictable than others. Like O-line, if you've got a guy that's 1E, 1M, they're going to be good. That kind of applies, at least for if you're that high in the draft and you have a 1E, 1M, 1L, they're going to be good. Doesn't matter. But after that, it falls off quick. So I haven't made a ton of trades with that in mind, just because there's not a whole lot of benefit to if you're only getting second and third round picks, like you really, if you're going to get a substantive, like someone who's going to make a big impact for you, you need a high pick, and those are not high to come by. I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times. The trade calculator, we intentionally value those things high, really high. It's hard to get a hold of them, just because not only just things that have happened in the past, but it's it should be extremely difficult to get your hands on a high first round pick.
Yeah.
So I haven't done a whole lot of trading with that in mind. It's just I'm happy to kind of let things play out as they are. If we need to make adjustments, we can. But I traded Pat Pete. Didn't really work out for me. I traded David Johnson. That one I think worked out for me because Justice Hill is still my running back now. But there's trading and finding a trade that is mutually beneficial in Madden 20 can be very difficult.
I know I said one more question, but I actually have one more question. Give us a little update. Where are we with your Cardinals in this rebuild project? Like, where do we stand, and what is left that you need to continue to turn the corner?
Okay. So season 1 I went 1-15. Season 2 I went 6-10. This year I think I'm gonna go 8-8. I think that's well within reach. It's not being too optimistic. I'm 3-2 right now. There will be games where I lay eggs, and there will be games where other people lay eggs against me. So, and I think my team is good enough at least to stand toe to toe with maybe not like the real title contenders, but a lot of the middleweight guys I think I can go toe to toe with now. I think I really just need time to let this roster play out and one more draft. If I can hit D-line or really just pass rush, that's kind of the last piece of the puzzle for me. Outside of that, it's just time and training and getting some of my young guys more snaps.
All right, any closing thoughts as we put a bow on this puppy?
Not really. Do you want to talk about, I guess, like, this is kind of a weird shoot-off, but you took over a team that was in a drastically different situation. Do you have any thoughts on, I guess, where your team is now?
Yeah, it's the Saints on paper always seem to be like one of those really fun teams to take over, but if you think about when we take them over and how many seasons we get in,
when Drew Brees retires the first season every year,
it's not a fun team to take over. I took over a team that's going to have a lot of really good young pieces that were up for contract, so I was going to have to spend a lot of money. Drew Brees retired after year one. A team whose offensive line in real life is probably one of the top 5 offensive lines in the NFL, but are grossly underrated in Madden. So, you're going to have to invest some money into the offensive line. You're going to have to go find a quarterback. And then there's definitely like some linebacker help and some defensive line help that's going to have to happen. And so even though on paper they have a very high overall, they actually need a lot. They didn't have a number 2 receiver. And so, I had to... I think, like you, had to learn how this game plays. I had to learn how to adjust to this game.
And I think I'm a guy who had somewhat of a learning curve, at least.
I build up front, so I love having big, powerful offensive linemen that are going to really set the tone in the run game. And then I want pass rushing defensive linemen that can, like everybody, right? I'd like to have a pass rush, but I actually like my pass rush to come up the middle. And I like a team that can really stop the other team's run game, make them kind of one-dimensional. It's not like that's some rocket science. If you look at the top winners, that's what they do here, right? And so I'd say it took me a little while to get there, but my defense has definitely turned the corner. You say it all the time. Bloop wants his credit. He's going to get a taste of them
Okay, no,
this week as he
I've
and I
watched a few of
get
your
to
games
play.
this year. Your defense
Yeah, they're playing
really
outstanding and they're
stepped
fun. They're a fun defense to have, but my offense has struggled for some unknown reason. My offensive line refuses to open up holes. Kamara's averaging 2.7 yards a carry. And that's where I get off balance. When my run game isn't there, I tend to go pass heavy, man. If you go pass heavy with an 84 throwing power quarterback,
Yeah, it's
you better either have super wide open receivers, which means you're probably cheesing the same routes over and over and over, or you better get ready for some turnovers. So that's kind of my problem. I think that we're slowly figuring it out. I finally learned how to play with Teddy Bridgewater. I think that's a question I'd like to ask you since you brought this up is where do you sit on the investing into the quarterback? You took over a team that luckily for you, you had a rookie deal, so maybe you don't have to worry about it for another season or two. But I got lucky with having Teddy. Now, I gave up a lot, right? I 84 throwing power. His accuracies are pretty decent, but even his like 84 speed doesn't really come like that. Feels very slow this Madden. It's not like I'm back there making a bunch of plays with his feet. So I got lucky. I'm paying him $15 million a year. It opened up other opportunities for me to build this defense, invest into those young players like Lattimore, Kamara, Thomas, other ones that were up for deal. So where do you sit with paying a young quarterback, or do you go with like a veteran or like an average guy so that you can have the money?
Man, I may have had a different answer for this at the beginning of the cycle, but after seeing as many guys go through like QB purgatory, I'm gonna give Kyler as much money as he wants because unless you're sitting like number 1 or number 2 overall, and you know that a guy is gonna fall into your lap, it's hard. It's you've got to either get lucky in the draft or find someone that's willing to take a gamble in the draft and take their quarterback because it's hard. And I mean, I can only imagine, I guess, a learning curve that you had to go through because 84 throwing power is not.
It was not fun to figure out.
Yeah, that's.
What positions do you draw that line though? So you will pay a quarterback now, but what positions where you're like, nah, man, like there's a line, and I'm either going to get you at this price, or I'm going to let you walk, no matter what your overall is.
Running back, I guess. Just
I agree
unless you've got unless you have.
And I paid Kamar, and I wish I didn't.
Yeah, and there's only certain, I guess, abilities that I feel like really stand out for running back, and it's spin cycle, jukebox, and human joystick. If you've got those, you can have whatever you want, but the other ones just feel like, I don't know, Kamara doesn't play like Kamara should.
No.
So that's one. Another one is defensive back, unless you've got a super, super good defensive back. I mean, you can attest to this with Marshawn Lattimore. There's guys that's another position group that really doesn't play up to the standard that they should. So I guess it's a diagnosis you have to make on where your team stands, if you can afford to let him walk, and B, how good is he really? Like, does he play up to what he should? Is he making the Stephon Gilmore like acrobatic swats or picks, or is he really not worth the $18 million a year that he wants?
Yep, I agree with you. I think I would pay cornerback, but like receiver, I'm probably not going to pay.
Receiver,
unless it's like that route running one.
I will
There's
say
a couple teams like offensive line. I will pay. Tight end, I'm not going to pay. I got a bid more for a tight end. I was like, nah, I can get a tight end anyway. Defensive line, I'm going to pay, right? Those types of positions. Linebacker, I'm a little iffy on. I think I did let a linebacker or two walk this past offseason because I just kind of had a line and I couldn't get them underneath that line. But I agree with you. There are definitely some positions where you're like, I got to pay this. If I'm going to build my team around this player, you got to pay
tight
it.
end is definitely something I feel like you don't. It's just so easily replaceable.
Yep. All right. Any other closing thoughts as we wrap it up here?
No, that's just about it. I hit on everything I had on my list jotted down. So, thank you for having me.
This is fun. No, absolutely. I can't wait to see. I'm a big fan of you and a big fan of your play style. And look, when the Cardinals start to turn the corner, as you already are, that's going to make that division that much harder, and it's going to make the OMFL that much better because we definitely have some, high and powerful teams that need to be taken down a couple of notches. So hopefully you'll be able to help us do that. So thanks for doing one of these with me, and good luck to your Cardinals this season. And this is fun, and we'll get this out to everybody and let them check out how to build the team, and hopefully they'll pick up some of your tips.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to all 22 OMFL Experts. This one was with Coach Rob on how to build your team. So take down some of those tips, go rebuild those teams, and we're looking forward to hearing some of your feedback. Leave us your thoughts in the comment section. Let us know what you think. How do you build your team? What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And we'll keep an eye on Rob and his Cardinals. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll see you. Peace.
Bye.